People keep running into the same problem when they ask for TV recommendations. They've already seen everything obvious. Chernobyl, Band of Brothers, the shows that show up on every single best of list ever published. So today I went somewhere else entirely. 15 limited series that critics loved, that occasionally even won the awards, and that somehow still never made it into the group chat. All of them are genuinely great. A few of them might actually stop you in your tracks. There's a show that will make you genuinely angry. 2 federal agencies sitting on the exact pieces needed to stop 9/11 and choosing ego and turf wars over picking up the phone. There's an international crime saga that follows 1 shipment of cocaine across 3 continents and about a dozen broken lives. And there is a show about a woman who gets fired from a chemistry lab for being a woman and ends up hosting the most subversive cooking show American television has ever imagined. 15 miniseries. All are highly underrated. Ranked? Let's go. Number 15. We own this city.
If I was going to look up one problem cop as a prime example of what's gone wrong here in Baltimore, where would I start?
A specialized Baltimore police unit created to get illegal guns off the street instead becomes one of the most corrupt units in the department's history, planting evidence, robbing citizens, stealing overtime pay on a scale that takes years to fully unravel. David Simon and George Pelecanos made this, the team behind The Wire, adapting journalist Justin Fenton's book about the actual scandal, and it functions almost as a bookend to that earlier series. Where The Wire showed institutional failure through fiction, this is the same rot 20 years later, and it actually happened. Jon Bernthal plays Wayne Jenkins, the unit's leader, in a performance built around a very American kind of charisma, the confidence of a man who has convinced himself that breaking the rules is the only way to actually do the job. The show cuts between the crimes as they happen and the federal investigation working backward to unravel them, and the structure makes the corruption feel less like a few bad actors and more like an entire system that quietly permitted this to happen for years. Bleak, furious, and one of the most clear-eyed studies of institutional failure ever put on television. Number 14. The North Water. Hull, 1859. A disgraced army surgeon, running from an opium addiction and a scandal in India, signs on as ship's doctor aboard a whaling vessel bound for the Arctic. He has no idea yet that the ship's harpooner is one of the most quietly terrifying characters ever put on screen. Jack O'Connell plays Patrick Sumner. Colin Farrell plays Henry Drax, a man who tells Sumner early on, almost cheerfully, "I'm a man like any other, give or take." He is not. Andrew Haigh adapted, wrote, and directed every episode of this 5-part BBC and AMC co-production, based on Ian McGuire's novel, and filmed it further north than any television production in history, inside the actual Arctic Circle, in conditions so severe that Farrell has since said he genuinely felt death was around the corner during the shoot. Stephen Graham, Tom Courtenay, and Peter Mullen round out a cast that never lets a single scene feel comfortable. Brutal, beautifully shot, and genuinely unforgiving in exactly the way a story about men at the edge of civilization should be. One of the most unflinching, best-acted limited series of the last several years. And almost nobody has seen it. Number 13. Waco.
This is our time to prove through suffering that we are worthy of the miracle that's to come.
Waco, Texas, 1993. A religious group led by David Koresh is holed up in a compound, armed, convinced the end of the world is close. The ATF wants to raid them. The FBI wants to negotiate. And over 51 days, the standoff escalates toward one of the most controversial law enforcement actions in American history. This miniseries dramatizes the siege from both sides simultaneously, inside the compound with Koresh's followers, and outside with the FBI negotiator trying to talk everyone out alive before the tactical teams lose patience. Taylor Kitsch plays David Koresh with an unsettling, genuine charisma. Never a simple cult leader caricature, but a man capable of real warmth and real manipulation in the same breath, which is exactly what made him dangerous. Michael Shannon plays the FBI negotiator caught between his own chain of command and a slowly collapsing situation he can see going wrong in real time. What makes Waco genuinely tense, even though most viewers know how it ends, is how methodically it shows every small decision, on both sides, that made de-escalation less and less possible. A patient, deeply uncomfortable look at how tragedies like this actually happen. Number 12. All her fault. A mother arrives to pick up her 5-year-old son from his first playdate. The woman who answers the door has no idea who he is, has never scheduled a playdate, has never heard of him at all.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Sarah Snook stars in this. Her first major live-action role since Succession, playing a mother whose ordinary afternoon collapses into a search that keeps revealing secrets nobody involved wanted uncovered. Based on Andrea Mara's novel, the show is structured as a slow accumulation of dread. Every parent, every neighbor, every seemingly minor character concealing something. And the show peels back one layer at a time without tipping its hand about which secrets actually matter to the disappearance and which are simply the ordinary, private messes of people's lives. Dakota Fanning plays the mother of the boy Milo was supposed to be playing with, and the two women's increasingly strained alliance becomes the emotional spine of the investigation. Michael Peña plays the detective forced to weigh procedure against instinct as the case grows stranger. The show doesn't reinvent the missing child thriller. What it does is execute it with real tension and a genuinely committed lead performance, escalating toward a finale with a body count nobody sees coming. Brand new, barely discussed, and worth the 8-episode binge. Number 11. Station 11.
Can I have your attention, please? We have shelter. We have food. This is the best thing that could have possibly happened.
A flu pandemic kills 99% of humanity. Not slowly, in days. 20 years later, a traveling theater company moves between isolated settlements, performing Shakespeare and music for survivors. Their motto, survival is insufficient. Patrick Somerville adapted Emily St. John Mandel's novel for HBO Max, and what he made is something almost no post-apocalyptic story attempts. A show in which the apocalypse is not the point. Survival is not the point. The question, what do we keep? What do we carry? What makes life worth sustaining is the point. Himesh Patel, Mackenzie Davis, and Gael Garcia Bernal lead an ensemble that moves across multiple timelines, before, during, and 20 years after. And the way those timelines fold into each other is some of the most controlled, most patient television storytelling of the decade. There is no villain you can point to. There is no mission to complete. There is just a group of people in an impossible world asking what theater is for, what music is for, what memory is for. 1 season, 8 episodes. The kind of thing you finish and sit with for days. Number 10. Godless. A mining accident kills nearly every man in a small New Mexico town, leaving the women to run it entirely on their own. Into this town rides a wounded outlaw, on the run from the vicious gang leader who raised him, a man now hunting him down with total, murderous focus.
For your life has lived in me. To remember this brings painful joy.
Scott Frank wrote and directed the entire 7-episode series, shot across genuinely stunning New Mexico landscapes, and it functions as both a classic Western and a quiet subversion of one. A town where the women aren't waiting to be rescued. They're running the sheriff's office, the ranches, and eventually the defense of the entire town themselves. Jeff Daniels plays Frank Griffin, the outlaw leader, with a biblical, almost mythic menace. A one-armed preacher of violence who genuinely believes his cause is righteous. Michelle Dockery and Merritt Wever anchor the town's women, with grit that never feels performative. The final siege, when it arrives, is one of the most patiently constructed action set pieces of any limited series in the last decade. A genuinely great Western that almost nobody outside a small devoted audience has actually watched. Number 9. Defending Jacob. A respected assistant district attorney's entire life implodes when his 14-year-old son is charged with murdering a classmate. He believes completely in his son's innocence. His job requires him to prosecute people exactly like the person his son might be.
The print we lifted from the victim is from your son.
There's got to be an explanation. They go to the same school Jacob's in his class.
Yes, we know that.
Lynn, have you arrested my son?
Based on William Landay's novel, the show unfolds as both a courtroom drama and a slow, quiet horror story about parental denial. A father whose professional expertise in reading guilt becomes useless the moment the accused is his own child. Chris Evans plays Andy Barber against type. Anxious, defensive, increasingly willing to cut corners he'd never allow anyone else to cut, while Michelle Dockery plays his wife, watching her own certainty about her son erode in ways she can't bring herself to say out loud. What makes the show so unsettling is its refusal to give you a clean answer until the very end. And even then, the ambiguity it leaves behind is the point, not a failure of the storytelling. That for sure. A tense, quietly devastating study of what parents are willing to convince themselves of. Number 8. The English.
I'll tell you a story. Mine's about revenge. Can't help but think yours is too.
1890. The American frontier. An Englishwoman travels alone into brutal, lawless territory, seeking revenge against the man she believes killed her son. A former U.S. cavalry scout, now an outcast among both Native and white communities, agrees to help her, for reasons of his own. Hugo Blick wrote and directed this, and it's a Western unlike almost anything else made in the genre recently. Stylized, occasionally surreal, willing to let violence land with real weight, rather than stylized spectacle. Emily Blunt plays Lady Cornelia Locke, with a controlled, simmering fury beneath aristocratic composure. Chastain Spencer plays Eli Whip, with a wary, hard-won trust that develops slowly across the 6 episodes. The two of them united by a shared understanding that the frontier's civility is mostly a lie, told by the people benefiting from the violence underneath it. The show doesn't flinch from the genocide of indigenous peoples that underpins the entire genre it's working in. It's woven directly into the story rather than treated as background texture. Gorgeously shot, genuinely strange, and one of the most interesting westerns of the last several years. Number 7. The Looming Tower.
This isn't a war about one man. His people actually believe.
I have to say that I agree with Jon on this one.
You are making a mistake, sir.
Through the 1990s, the FBI's counterterrorism unit and the CIA both had pieces of information about a growing threat named Al-Qaeda. Neither agency would share what they knew with the other. Territorial rivalry, ego, and bureaucratic dysfunction standing directly in the way of connecting a picture that, put together, might have prevented September 11th. Based on Lawrence Wright's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, the show follows the real agents on both sides of that rivalry with a controlled, mounting dread, because the audience already knows exactly where this is heading and watches every act of institutional pettiness bring it closer. Jeff Daniels plays FBI agent John O'Neill with restless, driven urgency, a man who sees the threat clearly and can't get anyone with the authority to stop it to take him seriously. Peter Sarsgaard plays his CIA counterpart with a chillier, more secretive professionalism that becomes genuinely infuriating as the stakes climb. What makes The Looming Tower so effective is its insistence that the tragedy wasn't inevitable. It was the result of specific, human, preventable failures made by people who each believed they were doing their job correctly. A tense, meticulously researched dramatization of one of the most consequential intelligence failures in American history. Number 6. River. A London detective solves murders with the help of the people he's failed to save. Not metaphorically. Literally. He sees them, talks to them, argues with them in the middle of active investigations, including his own partner, recently murdered, who he still can't quite let go of.
Have you experienced or been exposed to a traumatic event?
Yes.
This BBC miniseries is a police procedural on its surface, and something far stranger and more emotionally exposed underneath. A study of grief, guilt, and mental illness disguised as a detective show. Stellan Skarsgård plays Detective John River with a controlled, guarded fragility, a man whose brilliance as an investigator is inseparable from the psychological cost of everything he's seen and everyone he's lost. Nicola Walker plays his murdered partner, appearing throughout the show in conversations only River can hear, and the chemistry between them remains genuinely moving, even though one of them is dead for the entire runtime. The mystery of who killed her drives the plot, but the show's real interest is River's slow, painful reckoning with his own mind, never played for cheap sentiment, never resolved with easy comfort. 6 episodes, quietly one of the finest British crime dramas of the last decade. Number 5. John Adams. A Massachusetts lawyer defends British soldiers after the Boston Massacre, a deeply unpopular decision that will define the rest of his life, and goes on to help found an entire nation alongside men he often personally couldn't stand. HBO adapted David McCullough's biography across 7 episodes, and it's one of the most rigorously detailed portraits of the American founding ever filmed, refusing to sand down the pettiness, the vanity, and the genuine physical suffering involved in creating the country most historical dramas treat as inevitable. Paul Giamatti plays Adams with prickly, stubborn conviction, a man convinced of his own righteousness in a way that makes him both essential and often genuinely insufferable to the people around him. Laura Linney plays Abigail Adams, as his intellectual equal in every sense. Their marriage the emotional anchor across decades of political upheaval. What makes the series so effective is its willingness to show the Founding Fathers as flawed, frightened, frequently wrong men making enormous decisions with none of the historical certainty we now take for granted. Sweeping, meticulously crafted, and quietly one of the finest historical miniseries ever produced. Number 4. ZeroZeroZero.
Dare di mangiare a tutta gente nostra. Servono assai sorti.
A single shipment of cocaine followed from 3 different perspectives: the Italian mob financing the deal, the Mexican cartel supplying the product, and the American family of brokers responsible for getting it from one side of the world to the other, no matter what happens along the way. Based on Roberto Saviano's book, the show refuses the usual glamorization of the drug trade. Every perspective shows genuine cost, genuine brutality, and the specific, grinding logistics of moving an illegal product across a planet that keeps finding new ways to make that harder. Andrea Riseborough and Dane DeHaan play the American siblings managing the deal with a controlled, escalating panic as every safeguard around them falls apart. The Mexican cartel sequences carry a specific, unglamorized brutality, and the Italian mob thread grounds the whole enterprise in old-world tradition colliding with modern global logistics. The show moves patiently across all 3 storylines, letting the scale of the operation and the human cost underneath every transaction build slowly rather than through easy spectacle. A genuinely ambitious, globally minded crime saga that deserved far more attention than it received. Number 3. The Spy. Based on one of the most significant real intelligence operations of the 20th century, which changed the destiny of 2 warring nations.
If your country needed you to lie to your friends, your family, your wife, would you do it?
I will be a buyer working for the government.
Sacha Baron Cohen plays Eli Cohen, the real Israeli spy who infiltrated the highest levels of the Syrian government in the 1960s, becoming so trusted by Syrian military leadership that he was reportedly considered for the position of Deputy Minister of Defense, all while secretly feeding intelligence back to Israel that would prove decisive in the Six-Day War. This is Cohen's first major dramatic role, after building his career entirely on comedy, and what he does with it is genuinely remarkable. A performance built on quiet, controlled tension, rather than any of the exaggerated register audiences associate with him. Here's what makes The Spy genuinely gripping. It never lets you forget the human cost of what Cohen is doing. A man building genuine friendships under pretenses, living a double life so complete that the line between performance and reality becomes increasingly unstable, while his wife back in Israel raises their children largely alone. The tension of the final episodes is genuinely unbearable. one of the finest espionage dramas has ever been produced, and one of the most surprising dramatic transformations by any comedic actor in recent memory. Number 2. Scenes from a Marriage.
Research says that when the woman is the provider and the man is a caregiver, the marriage has a greater chance of success.
Huh, hear that, Kate?
Loud and clear.
A married couple, seemingly stable and content, slowly reveals the fractures underneath their relationship over the course of one conversation, then several, then years. A dissection of a marriage falling apart with a precision that borders on unbearable, if you've ever loved anyone. Adapted from Ingmar Bergman's 1973 series, this version transplants the story to contemporary America, and what makes it so effective is its commitment to real time. Entire episodes given over to a single extended conversation. No cutaways, no music doing the emotional work for you. Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac play the couple, with a rawness that reportedly required both actors to genuinely separate from their own real-life partners for the duration of shooting to fully commit to the material. Every argument feels genuinely unscripted. The specific way couples circle the same wound for years without ever actually naming it. Each episode opens with a brief metatextual scene of the actors themselves preparing to shoot, a device borrowed directly from Bergman that reminds you constantly you're watching a construction, which somehow makes the emotional content land even harder rather than softer. This is not comfortable viewing. It is some of the finest sustained acting work either performer has ever done. Number 1. Lessons in Chemistry.
The only constant variable is the unexpected. We can't control it. It's only when you look backwards that you see how it was all connected.
Elizabeth Zott is a brilliant chemist in 1950s America, in a field that refuses to take her seriously simply because she's a woman. But after tragedy upends her career entirely, she ends up hosting a daytime cooking show and uses it, quietly and completely deliberately, to teach an entire audience of housewives real chemistry. Based on Bonnie Garmus's best-selling novel, the 8-episode adaptation gives Brie Larson the best role of her career. Elizabeth is furious, brilliant, and almost pathologically incapable of softening herself to make other people comfortable, which is exactly why the world keeps trying to shrink her. What makes Lessons in Chemistry extraordinary is its refusal to be a simple feel-good period piece. The show sits directly with the specific, grinding humiliation of being brilliant and constantly underestimated. Every small, casual dismissal from male colleagues rendered with genuine weight, rather than played as easy period drama villainy. The cooking show itself becomes one of television's most quietly radical images. A woman standing in front of a live audience, refusing to perform likability, insisting that the housewives watching her are capable of understanding real science, and watching them rise to meet that respect. Funny, furious, and deeply moving by the end, this is the best show on this list, and somehow, still, one of the most overlooked. That's the end of today's list. 15 miniseries that deserved so much more attention than they actually got. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these have you actually seen already? And which one are you adding to your watch list tonight? If you're looking for even more limited series, check out my list of the best Netflix miniseries. You should see it on your screen right now. Also, how did you like this video? Your feedback genuinely helps me make better recommendations and create videos you'll enjoy even more. And if you enjoy the video, do like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.